So this is a reaction to Michael and Michelle Collins, I think, Simone Collins. He's born in a genius family. He's very interesting. They make a lot of videos. He's obviously very smart, very knowledgeable. But because I have 10 years of experience really meditating and experiencing these cults firsthand, or guru or meditation type people and circles, I have a lot of experience with them. And I came out with much of the same realizations that they have in a sense. They definitely have a pretty firm grasp of what's good and important. And yes, but I felt like my commentary would be useful.
They have made, and this is the core sin here, they have made pursuing a mental state the goal.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
the mental state is the byproduct of the correct mindset.
Yeah, and what they often do is they will act like this mental state, which is actually pretty easy to do, is a difficult thing that only like a true master can do. They'll start gaslighting you because that's how.
Yes, I would fully agree with that. Just relaxing into that meditative state, it requires some practice sometimes in the beginning maybe, but it's in a way, a very easy thing to do. It's like going to sleep, but like consciously. This is true. It is a very easy thing to do. And it is true that these gurus, some of them I still respect, some of them not so much. They do want to sell you something. They want to impose this idea that they are like, because they've done this for so long, they're now so good at it. And it's true that if you would meditate with them and they're kind of good at meditation, you maybe would get into a state and they would think, oh my God, this guru is so amazing. But many of them would put up the idea that because they have done it for so long, for so much, they're now like very special, expert level, insanely enlightened. And if you just follow them long enough, if you just listen to them long enough, it is their job to literally sit in front of an audience and have them listen to you and pay you, and you giving them advice. It's like a social club in a way also, but this is true. It's an extraordinary simple thing. That's what I kind of was falling into. I thought I was going to do the same thing. I mean, I'm just going to do this so much. I'm going to be the best at it. It will not need a job. But I've found that the only thing I would really have to say is that, yes, you have these kind of core Buddhist teachings, very simple. You just meditate, do nothing. You have the sins or the poisons and like the fat. There's some interesting wisdom in Buddhism, very simple, but all you would really say to people is like, okay, now sit down, close your eyes, do nothing, relax, or maybe repeat a mantra, or maybe watch your breath, or just put your attention on like the consciousness and like enjoy. That's literally the only instruction there would be left to say to someone. So why and how? I don't like people that much. I'm not like super social. So why? It just doesn't make sense, right? In a way to just tell people to just sit down, relax, realize that you're also like this deeper consciousness and just do nothing. And that's what people would pay you for. It's just a very, very odd thing in a way. And that's why most of them are hucksters, and they want you to come back because they want you to believe that they are very special and it's very difficult. So he is absolutely right about this. I think that's very interesting. I don't know his background, but he got that right on the money. So
they assert their status, which is always important within cult traditions.
I just stood there quietly breathing. There were no thoughts in my head whatsoever. My mind was blank. I don't know what the hell these other crackpots are doing.
Are so dangerous for religious systems from both a theological and secular perspective, which is what we always aim to do in these, is explain why rules exist within them from both a secular evolutionary perspective, but also from a theological perspective. Why doesn't God want us dancing around campfires naked?
I don't know if it's dangerous. I'm not sure if I'm that Christian. I know that they're not like super Christian. I don't know if it can be dangerous if they attain a cult status, as you did mention, then it definitely can be. I would absolutely agree. People sometimes spend fortunes on these people because they absolutely believe that in a few years' time, if they're connected to the guru enough, and it's very cult-like often, that they will get the super enlightenment where like there's no thoughts forever, everything is like quiet and it's like pure bliss all the time. And I agree that is pretty dangerous. There may be some truth to it, but
because that leads to people's mental faculties being corrupted, being lowered, their inhibitions being lowered, makes it easier to implant false ideas into an individual, and can be used to manipulate and control individuals by malevolent actors.
I would also agree that as I'm young, it seems very interesting and very nice, the whole dancing kind of tantric kind of hippie culture. But then there, of course, is a danger, which all religions, all cultures, not all cultures, but all civilized cultures have kind of warned about. Is that, oh, this leads to single mothers, this leads to fatherless homes, which are much higher in crime and all sorts of mental problems. So having the culture of no marriage and just kind of going with the flow, yeah, that also is a bit dangerous. These are not things that you want to hear as a young person. You want to hear, go for it. This will get you enlightened, and it's a lot of fun. Right?
I feel like one of the reasons why I'm so antagonistic towards mysticism, if you study it after studying about cults, is you'll see that it is very similar to cults in what it does. It's just a convergent cult within the various Abrahamic traditions, or within any tradition. You're going to get mystics within Buddhist schools, within Hindu schools. You're always going to get the mystic cults. But when you first study cults, when you see how malevolent humans have developed and honed these traditions to manipulate people into believing falsehoods.
Would you like to know more?
Hey nerds, this is another one in Based Camp's Tract series, meaning we are going to discuss religion. It's like our weird version of Bible study. So if you're here for the normal podcast, skip this one. Don't worry, we'll be back next week. We do 5 episodes a week. Only one of them is this. So it was nice seeing you, but we'll see you again for the normal podcast shortly.
And the title cards look very different, so it's easy to skip.
So Malcolm, you frame idolatry as this really important element of religion in a way that I've never really heard framed before in fictional or real depictions of religious practice or preaching. Before you dive into this tract, I'm just kind of curious why you think it's such a big deal.
Well, because I think it's literally the single largest temptation for people who are trying to follow God in goodwill. That's why. Because, something like murder or something like that, I mean, most humans can intuit that this is a bad thing that's going to lead to bad outcomes for themselves or for their community if it's allowed. I think people can't intuit why idolatry is so dangerous to a community or to an individual. And that's why it needs to be emphasized so strongly. But interestingly, as I pointed out in the last tract, a lot of people misunderstand what is actually meant by idolatry. They hear idolatry and they think it means literally the art itself, which has spiritual significance, which is a form of idolatry, or the statue itself. No, idolatry is looking for shortcuts to God through earthly things. So, or assigning spiritual significance to earthly things. So, if a cartoonist is drawing a picture of Muhammad, for example, within this, the cartoonist hasn't actually committed idolatry because he doesn't assign any spiritual significance to that. The individual, when they get mad at the cartoonist and they assign spiritual significance to that, they have now committed idolatry because they've created an earthly intermediary for either side of the fine, whether it's believing in cursed places, like negative or positive. Assigning a Quran and saying this Quran is sacred and you can't, you need to find special ways of disposing of it and everything like that. You have now created.
Very interesting, good point. Honestly, he's born into a family of geniuses. Apparently, I do believe that. He makes. The podcast is full of interesting, good points, so I'd highly recommend it. I'm not sure how much I'm going to respond to it because I basically said everything I wanted to say, and he cut out the best part of it already. It's going to be very long, otherwise, not sure how big of an attention span people have. But I liked it. Not everybody has the time, of course. But yeah, I would agree. And the idea of adultery, yes, especially when it's in the form of a human, I'm not sure if it's I do see the wisdom in not doing it. I also don't think it's a super big deal if these Indian cultures have some of these pictures that they like to worship or like kind of look at and be like, to me, that's like a form of divine love. But that's my personal view. But then there are analyses that say, for example, that Daniel Hakikachu did, that say that these cultures that worship these images and these different gods, it does apparently create more ritualistic things that can go south. And I also can definitely see the danger in having an image of God and assigning a kind of specific personality to it, and then they may fight over who has the best god or the strongest god, or people thinking that now I'm embodying Hanuman, so now I'm like this badass god that's better than everybody else. Or people imagine like, well, now Krishna is talking to me, and it's like, this is, or I saw this blue thing over there, this is Krishna. Or can get delusional in that sense when you think of these gods in your mind, maybe. I do think that there can be a danger in that. And apparently, like, I would tend to say, well, it's not that big of a deal, it's just Indian culture. But then apparently also, this does correlate with people eventually going into like sacrificing things and like child sacrifice. And there may be sort of mental constructs, maybe even spiritually, that would feed into that, or what that would, I don't know, like dream forms of mental forms somehow that somehow have consciousness that would play into that in a person's mind. This is what people would refer to as like demonic forces, or not so much angelic then, but like demonic forces. Personally, I think that is a pretty valid criticism. I don't think it's that big of a deal when people take the image of Mary or something like that, or Jesus, which Muslims also see as adultery, and be like, this is a very beautiful image of God. But it's good to keep in mind, I would agree that there is a non-local or a sort of space or a sort of presence or beingness that you can sort of merge or commune in or commune with, that is not localized into a form. And therefore, if you would focus only on the form think of the images, then you would kind of miss the meditative or communal aspect with the divine. So I would agree with that in that sense. And maybe to end it on this, that yes, it is a very simple thing. It's literally your own, not your own self, but your own being, part of the life force that's like made of God, I guess you could say. So it's not a complicated thing. You don't have to sit with a guru. You don't have to even be pure. The love of it would make you want to be pure and do pure, but there's no, could be that not being pure would kind of fill your mind with all sorts of problems and wars, but that's basically it.
All it takes for the basilisk to slither into the mind of the faithful and turn God's loyalist follower into a puppet of sin is for him to forget, even for a moment, just how serious a transgression it is to attempt to trap an element of God within the mortal realm, or to pierce the veil of God's realm. Fortunately, both of these things are impossible, but it is very easy to trick the human brain into believing it has accomplished them.
I would disagree. Reality is based on two things, the material world and the spiritual world. Now, he's quoting something, so I'm not sure if these are his specific beliefs, but this is his view. But the formless world, which is by definition not bound by the physical, it's like all the emptiness everywhere, that is the presence of the fundamental, or the divine, you could say. It is like, that's the space of life itself. You can't really separate yourself from it. You can't separate God from it. And the intelligence and the grace or the Holy Spirit, that's also part of it. It's like maybe the intermediary between the Holy Spirit and the physical. But he says you can't really penetrate that space. I disagree. But it doesn't make you all-knowing, doesn't make you perfect per se. And maybe it could be interpreted as you can't really become God in the guru sense, that you can't, just because you know that more of that space, or you find peace there, or sort of freedom from the world, that doesn't make you a God. That doesn't make you a sort of, maybe there is a higher Holy Spirit that's greater than human beings. I'm not sure about that, but could be, but doesn't make you God, doesn't make you special over other people, etc. I would agree with that. And there comes some more, which I also don't really, I think is a misconception.
The moment an individual succumbs to the belief that there are shortcuts to attempt to commune with God, it becomes almost impossible to save them. The only path to God is logic and pragmatism.
So if you think that these little things make you God and make you so special, or these feelings or these energies, then yes, in that sense, these shortcuts are all just delusions based on your ego, a sort of entrapment of how you are special. I would agree with that, but the only way to God is pragmatism and rationality, and I think to his life that means like doing good, being rational. I would sort of agree that is the path of God or serving God in the physical, but to go to relax beyond yourself in a sense, that is not that has nothing even to do with reason. In a sense, being totally logical all the time does hinder it, because being logical is like being focused in the world in a sense, which you don't need to be. You need to, navigate through the world, but no, to relax beyond your mind, you need to let go of that control structure and then open up. But that's for meditation. Could that be used to then manipulate people by other people sometimes? Probably.
All shortcuts lead one's soul to enslavement. So this is really important that I mention this here, because this is the key to a lot of mystic traditions. They say, you do these behaviors, and it's usually a very simple set of behaviors that fall into the set that I talked about before, like chanting simple phrases and stuff like that we know, you can chant. Some yoga guy could use this to create sex slaves. Like, these are always used by cults because they're very easy ways to create this illusion, because they release endogenous chemicals that are similar to drugs in our brain, of like, you have found something special or supernatural. Some great examples of well-known groups that use these techniques are groups like Transcendental Meditation or TM, or the Hare Krishna. However, if you want a deep dive on how sort of yoga cults work, I would strongly suggest a YouTube video called "I Married a Yoga Guru Con Man."
That's true that these positions can attract like these narcissistic abusers, but I would not say that this has anything to do with these mantras. These mantras don't have any power in and of themselves. They do open you up to the meditation process, which may make one a little bit vulnerable. They may not know what's going on. They may have wacky beliefs of enlightenment, which then turn the authority over to that guru, which then sort of manipulates them. Yes, that's very possible. Maybe it happens about 50% of the time with these teachers. Not completely sure, not all of them. But it's not the techniques themselves. They don't do anything at all. These words don't really do anything at all. It's just to do it in meditation so that you are not constantly in your thinking mind. That's the only thing that these mantras do. There's no real power in them, in my experience. I know that for a fact, because it's just flipping your attention and consciousness back to a more inward sort of peace, which has a sort of energy, sort of vibe or power to it, or a sort of relaxedness, communion with the Holy Spirit. And that can be manipulated by gurus into making you believe that they have more of that, or that they're more important. But the mantras or the techniques themselves, they don't really do anything. I'm not sure if he implied that, but that's what I would add.
The solution is very easy to create with things like hallucinogens, right? We know this from hallucinogens. Like, everyone takes hallucinogens. They're like, oh, man, I like touch the nature of reality. It's like, no, you did something that created that experience within you, but it was a false experience. And as such, it is, as we say, the mystic elevates states of corrupted mental states. Whereas,
and also, who's to say that being close to God feels like something ecstatic?
I would say they have a point, but not really. I don't personally think that he has experience with psychedelics. Maybe he has, maybe he doesn't. It does matter if you want to have a complete view of it. I do have experience with both, and he is sort of right and sort of wrong. Meditation and psychedelics are two completely different things in a sense. Meditation is like withdrawing from the world and the mind and going, just relaxing deeper into yourself, and deeper there you do find a sort of boundlessness, a nothingness, or a fullness that is beyond your mind, beyond yourself, and that is God. That I had to break. There is no special super being outside of life. You are life, and you will find it there. It is also true that psychedelics can open you up to that. They can make you relax and fall deeper into that. But in many cases, maybe 80% of the time, people's minds are not really focused inwards, they're focused outwards. And psychedelics just somehow change the things you see or the things you hear or things you think. And people can definitely confuse that or some energies going through the body or some thoughts with like amazing insights. And they're like, oh my God. And, and even in fact, I tried it when I was younger. The first time it happened, it was like so wild. It was like, it really kind of broke reality, and you would get kind of half into that nothingness. And then like, it really altered the way I experienced life. Because it was such a intense, profound experience, I did think later on, well, that must have been it. That was like the God thing. That was everything that it was about. But in reality, it was a very chaotic state with a lot of things going on, a lot of fears, a lot of things happening, a lot of weirdness, maybe some glimpse into like some space that's like kind of beyond the world. And a very intense sense of life being a movie, and it like flashing in front of my eyes in frames. It's actually very wild what can happen. It's totally unbelievable in a sense. And because it's so big, you do think, oh my God, this is it. This is God. This must be the way to God. And then you fall into the trap of people who have done that a lot and have had a lot of chaotic states, that they know everything. In a way, it's the opposite. It's you're putting more stuff into your brain and having more weirdness and having more thoughts, and you're just getting away from a deeper peace and a deeper nothingness. But people think that there's this great realization in the back of it all that will change you forever and you'll never have any problems, and that's enlightenment. That doesn't exist. You just experience deep meditation. And then you have to live your life again, and you have to be honorable and be a good person, like he explains. And there is no shortcut in that sense. And then these things, they can become entrapments, because you think, oh wow, this is so intense and amazing and profound. This is like what God is, or something like that. And they have the most wacky beliefs, like becoming God or aliens or becoming a super healer or divination, with all these kind of predicting things and just being like a super special kind of guru psychic mastermind. That's what many of these hippies kind of want to be, or believe themselves, or think it's possible, or think what it's about. So I do agree with the all-round culture, the all-round sense of concern, the all-round sense of delusion that can happen. But it's also true that it can make you open up and experience partly God. And I don't know, I think everyone has this idea that God must be like a super experience, spiritual experience. And that may be true. There may be sort of these moments when it gets super intense, or the light within, or the light sort of really is very intensely present. I've had that a couple of times on psychedelics and on not on psychedelics. I don't do them anymore. This is like some years ago. Like 5 years ago, I don't know, 6. But I tried it tried it numerous times. And but life is God. You can't separate these things from life. So in my experience, meditation, like 99 out of 100 times is like about a deeper relaxation and becoming content with life, and experiencing a deeper peace and a connection, a benevolence with sort of the light within. Not as me as having the light within, but just communing with that light or that beingness. And there's nothing special about this. There's nothing special about me that I'll be able to say that. I'm just a guy who had some meditation experience. There's nothing guru about me. It's just sharing some experience. There's nothing special about that or about me. So in that sense, he definitely has a point, but also sense some, despite his great achievements in life, he may even be unparalleled in many ways. Maybe not completely unparalleled, but compared to the general populace, there's probably still some inexperience there, but it is a good effort. I don't want to take anything away from that or his intelligence or his general analysis. I'm just sensing I spent thousands of hours on this. It's not an ego thing. I just know a lot about these things because I spent so much time on it. In general, it's a good assessment.
Feels like something ecstatic or really joyful.
Oh, I'm almost certain it doesn't.
Yeah, but I think that that's what people are drawn to.
And that's true again if you wake up these feelings and you get energies of joy or ecstasy or usually people who go after that are kind of on the fence. They're kind of really joyful and then they lose that and then they're back in their ego with a lot of fear or insecurity or I've lost it kind of sense. These really are fluctuations in the body of like being very happy, but that may have something to do with allowing sort of a free or of a loving energy, but that are in a sense in the realm of the body mind, and these are things that comes and goes, so it's inherently beyond something that's peaceful. It's something that comes and goes, right? So they do have a point there. It's just not so that being with God or retracting into that deeper space is inherently painful or confusing or terrifying or bad. These are things that are really kind of absent there. It's like conscious deep sleep. When you're nearing deep sleep or when you're in deep sleep, you also don't have a sense of being very alone or being scared or feeling cold or these things. It's just very peaceful. So it's not that it's anti joy. It's just that there's also no real personal happiness in some sense. There's just a good peace. So.
Band. That's not a feeling.
Right, but it's a very unique feeling. It's a very contented feeling. It's a feeling of no FOMO, no insecurity, no cognitive dissonance, because you know what matters and what doesn't. But it isn't this feeling of joy or happiness or out-of-body experience that I think a lot of people have come to expect from and associate with highly religious experiences.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. So the religious experience for, I think, the true monarch.
I would agree with that. I'd put this in to be fair to them. It's not like they're oblivious.
It reminds me of those paintings, maybe by like Botticelli, of the Virgin with the child, where she's not like this is crazy. She just looks like extremely calm and focused.
Yeah, but it's very important in what you're saying here. One of the core paths used by mystics that's important to guard against is this idea of pushing all thought from one's mind. This is something that you see John of the Cross talk about if you're talking about the Catholic tradition. It's something you see Maimonides talk about if you're talking about the Jewish tradition. It's something you see Buddhists often talk about. Pushing all thought, pushing all will, pushing all self out of one's mind. And then you get nothing. It's John of the Cross called it the nada. And then that is where God comes in. But no. Pushing all of this out of yourself is not where God comes in. God comes in through your industry, through achieving things that actually matter and achieving these goals that actually matter.
So he is definitely a very driven, very ambitious person, which you can see in his life. He has, I think, achieved a great much more than me. But yes, he has a good point in the sense that if you adopt that point of view, it doesn't really work. It does work in meditation. For meditation time, when you have your prayer time, you push everything away and you just focus on God. That is true. It's just that the people do make the fault of thinking that must be all the time, and I must do that all the time during daily life, and then you get like these kind of zombie people in a way that are like, oh yeah, God, and it's like, yeah. They take it too far. He does have a point, but I think he can use a little bit more meditation experience. Also, maybe that's a bit hard in that sense if you're a very successful person who has like, I don't know, they do many of these podcasts, they do a lot of books. That's very good. I'm not saying you shouldn't. In my opinion, also, in a way, even nighttime is more for meditation, daytime is more for work. So I do appreciate this work of it. And I agree that this divine mother in a family, holy relationship, communion with a man that's, under God and in a tradition with the family, that is more divine than these hippie girls being like, oh my God, this is God. Yeah, I agree with the general sentiment there. And would highly recommend this channel. It's like actually one of the best YouTube channels that I found. Just so much information. They put in graphs there. They put in a lot of work there. They're a very smart couple. It's very interesting to watch the dynamic, and it's just so good. It has so much of everything. So would highly recommend. Recommend. This is like a high tier free college course on everything. It's like amazing. It's actually very, very cool. So yeah, very much appreciate that they put this out for free for everyone to learn. It's amazing. So thank you for listening.